Remember? That bloody night on Driftmark, a fight that ended with the price of an eye. But what if the price wasn't just an eye, but a life? That pivotal event that ignited one of the greatest dynastic wars in history. What if Aemond Targaryen had lost not just his eye, but his life in that fight with Lucerys Velaryon? This scenario would go far beyond just one character's death. What if Lucerys inadvertently became cursed as a Kinslayer? What if Vhagar's fate became uncertain? And what if the flames of the Dance of the Dragons ignited much earlier and uncontrollably, even while King Viserys was still alive? In this episode, we'll take a close look at how history would be fundamentally rewritten, which characters would rise and which houses would fall, and how this bloody spark would turn Westeros into a raging inferno. Shall we begin? How would Westeros's fate have instantly shattered? In the story we know from House of the Dragon, Aemond survived as Aemond One-Eye, claiming Vhagar, the colossal dragon, at the cost of his eye. But this price also transformed him into a vengeful, ice-cold warrior. His personal vendetta would lead to one of the show's bloodiest duels, Storm's End, and Lucerys' tragic end. Alicent Hightower's motherly fury, crying an eye for an eye, clashed with Rhaenyra's defiant assertion of her son's legitimacy. King Viserys' helplessness only deepened the chasm between the two sides. There was no turning back. Everything became personal. The eye became an unerasable symbol of insult and the impending war. But what if Lucerys' blow that night had struck not Aemond's eye, but his very heart? What if Aemond's last breath had mingled with the rocks of Driftmark? Young Luce, still a child, would find his hands stained with blood, and his conscience sealed by an unforgivable curse, that of a Kinslayer. In Westeros, kinslaying is considered the darkest of sins, unforgivable even by the gods. How would Lucerys live with such a burden? Would he ever again ride his dragon Arax with a clear conscience? How would the future Lord of Driftmark cope with such a horrific past? Would this burden drive him to madness, or transform him into a completely different man? And Queen Rhaenyra? How would her son's act shake her already fragile position, one already questioned regarding the legitimacy of her Targaryen lineage? How would she combat the stain this brought upon her claim in the eyes of the public, torn between a mother's instinct to protect her child and the dark shadow cast upon her? Rhaenyra's struggle as both mother and queen would face its most brutal test. Perhaps Lucerys would isolate himself from society, or even be forced to leave the ranks of the Blacks to escape public wrath and blood feuds. With Aemond's death, Vhagar, the oldest, largest, and most fearsome dragon in Westeros, would once again be riderless. In the show, Vhagar's claim by Aemond terrifyingly increased the Green's heir superiority. Her colossal shadow loomed as a threat over the entire kingdom. But if Aemond had died, who would dare to claim this ancient power? Perhaps one of Aegon's still young children? Or perhaps the ambitious demon would not miss this opportunity, trying everything to bring Vhagar to the side of the Blacks? Or would Vhagar, after the tragic and sudden death of her rider, lose all faith in humanity and become unrideable forever? Would she remain eternally alone? This uncertainty in dragon power would completely overturn all the strategies of the Dance of the Dragon. If Vhagar had been taken from the Greens or remained unclaimed, the Blacks' dragon superiority, consisting of Syrax, Caraxes, and Melees, would become absolute. Could this determine the outcome of the war before it even began? Or perhaps it would so unbalance the sides that it would make war entirely unnecessary. Aemond's eye was an unforgivable wound for Alicent. What about the lifeless body of her beloved son? This would ignite an immeasurable fire of grief, rage, and vengeance on the Green's side. Would Alicent go to any lengths to punish her child's murderer? Would Otto Hightower ruthlessly use this tragedy as a perfect opportunity to depose Rhaenyra? King Viserys, despite all his good intentions, how would he stomach this kinslaying? How would he react to such a horrific event within his own family? Would he be forced to punish Lucerys? And most importantly, would this event spark the Dance of the Dragons much earlier, perhaps while Viserys was still alive or immediately after he ascended the throne, in a way more bloody and brutal than ever before? Such an early start to the war would rewrite Daemon's strategies, Corlys's moves, and even Larys Strong's dark machinations. Which houses would be forced to pick sides? Who would form unexpected alliances? Who would survive? Who would sit on the Iron Throne? This could have been the most terrifying, most brutal version of the Dance of the Dragon, dragging Westeros into a completely different future. As we've seen, that seemingly simple fight on Driftmark had the potential to fundamentally determine the fate of an entire dynasty. Lucerys becoming a Kinslayer, Aemond's tragic death. This what-if scenario shows us how delicately Westeros' history walks on a thin line, and how one event can completely alter the timeline. Do you think this event would make the Dance of the Dragons even bloodier, or perhaps surprisingly prevent it? How would Lucerys transform under such a burden? Share your thoughts, your wildest theories, with us in the comments. If you love these what-if scenarios from the House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones universe, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. See you in our next epic content.